At 10:42 p.m., a phone vibrated. Rafael, El Silencio, Montoya Cruz looked down. Unknown number. One message. He's hurting my mom. Rafael frowned. Wrong number. Then, please. Another vibration. I'm hiding. Rafael sat forward. The next message hit harder. There's blood. The room went silent. Seconds passed. Then, I hear him. Rafael stood up so fast the chair crashed behind him. No adult wrote like this. He typed 3 words. I'm coming now. And in that moment, Rafael Montoya Cruz knew. If he was late, this would be the last message that phone ever sent. Before we continue, if you're watching this from anywhere in the world, hit subscribe and comment where you're watching from. Make sure you stay till the end. You'll understand why. Now let's begin. Rafael, El Silencio, Montoya Cruz had learned to live inside silence. At 10:42 p.m., silence was his favorite thing. No voices, no footsteps, just the low hum of the city outside the penthouse windows and the weight of power resting exactly where he liked it, unquestioned. The phone on the desk was not meant for mercy. It existed for confirmations, coordinates, orders that ended lives quietly and efficiently. When it vibrated, men disappeared. When it rang, cities shifted. That's why the message made no sense. He's hurting my mom. Rafael didn't move. He read it again, slower this time, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something logical. They didn't. Wrong number. That was the only explanation. A child misdialing, a prank that would correct itself. He set the phone down and reached for his glass. It vibrated again. Please. Rafael's jaw tightened. Children didn't beg strangers like that unless they were desperate or taught fear early. Another vibration. I'm hiding. The room felt smaller, too quiet now, the kind of quiet that pressed against the ears. Rafael picked up the phone. Then the message that made his chest go still arrived. There's blood. His fingers curled around the device, knuckles whitening. The phone felt heavier than it should have. He didn't know this child. Didn't know her name. Didn't know her city. But he knew fear when he read it. The screen lit up again. No words this time. Just 3 dots. Typing. And whatever was about to come next would decide whether Rafael Montoya Cruz stayed who he had always been, or became something he swore he never would again. The 3 dots vanished. For a second, nothing came through. That pause was worse than screaming. Rafael stared at the screen, unmoving, his instincts sharpening. Silence like that meant listening, waiting, holding breath so the world wouldn't hear you exist. Then the phone vibrated again. He's close. Rafael's throat tightened. Another message followed almost immediately, as if sent in panic. I'm in the closet. A closet. Small, dark, no air. Rafael imagined it without wanting to, the smell of old clothes, the floor cold against bare legs, a child pressing her mouth shut so fear wouldn't turn into sound. He typed, erased, typed again. Words were dangerous, the wrong ones could get her killed. Stay quiet. The reply took longer this time. I am. Another pause. Then, my mom is on the floor. Rafael closed his eyes for half a second, just long enough to steady his breathing. Is she moving? Dots appeared, stopped, appeared again. I don't know. The honesty in that answer cut deeper than panic ever could. Children didn't soften the truth, they dropped it raw. There's red on the carpet. Rafael stood up slowly, the chair scraping softly behind him. His heart was beating now, measured, controlled, but unmistakable. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a mistake. This was a child whispering into a phone because the walls around her weren't protecting her anymore. Another vibration. Short, shaky. He's walking again. Rafael moved toward the door, already reaching for his coat. And for the first time in years, the silence he lived inside didn't feel powerful. It felt dangerous. Rafael didn't announce his movement. He never did. Men like him didn't explain themselves, especially not to empty rooms. Still, as he crossed the penthouse, something felt off, as if the walls were watching him leave a version of himself behind. He slipped the phone into his jacket. Another vibration. He didn't slow. I think he's looking for me. Rafael stopped at the door. He typed with one hand. Don't answer if he's near. Seconds passed. Too many. Then, okay. That single word landed heavier than any threat he'd ever received. Rafael opened the door. The hallway outside was empty, polished marble stretching toward the elevator like a runway. His reflection stared back from the dark glass, calm, controlled, untouched. A lie. The elevator descended too slowly. Every floor felt like a wasted breath. The phone vibrated again. He said my name. Rafael's jaw locked. Children learned fear by sound first, tone, footsteps, the way air changed when someone angry entered a room. He stepped into the underground garage, the echo of his shoes sharp and final. His driver rose instinctively from the car, reading Rafael's face and stopping mid-sentence. Boss. Stay, Rafael said. One word, absolute. He slid into the driver's seat himself, the engine roaring to life like it had been waiting. Another message came through as the car shot up the ramp. I'm not breathing loud. Rafael tightened his grip on the wheel. Somewhere a child was teaching herself how to disappear. And every rule Rafael Montoya Cruz had built his life on distance, detachment, silence, was already breaking. Because the next message might be the last one she ever sent. The city blurred into streaks of white and red as Rafael pushed the car harder than he ever had without a convoy. Streetlights flashed past like warnings he didn't have time to read. The engine's growl filled the cabin, steady and unforgiving, but his hands were shaking. He hated that. The GPS voice cut in, calm and indifferent. Estimated arrival, 9 minutes. 9 minutes was a lifetime. The phone buzzed against his thigh. I'm still quiet. Rafael exhaled through his nose, slowly, measured. Good, he typed, you're doing perfect. He didn't know why he chose those words. Praise wasn't part of his vocabulary. Survival was, but the message went through, and the 3 dots appeared almost immediately this time. My mom isn't waking up. His foot pressed lower, the speedometer climbed. The city smelled different at this hour, wet asphalt, old heat, something metallic riding the air. Rafael's eyes flicked between the road and the glowing screen, calculating turns, shortcuts, seconds shaved off corners. He'd driven 1,000 times for reasons that never mattered like this. Stay where you are, he typed. Help is coming. The dots stalled. The GPS updated. 8 minutes. Another vibration, lighter, delayed. I feel sleepy. Rafael swore under his breath. Fatigue, shock, fear bleeding into exhaustion. He'd seen it before in men twice her size. No, he typed quickly, not yet. Silence answered him. The road opened up, empty and black ahead. The GPS spoke again, merciless. 7 minutes. Rafael leaned forward, eyes burning. And then the phone vibrated, once, softly, like it didn't have the strength to do it again. The vibration was weak. Barely there. Rafael glanced down for half a second too long. I'm tired. That was all it said. No fear. No panic. Just surrender. Rafael's chest tightened hard enough to hurt. He'd heard that tone before, in interrogation rooms, on hospital beds, in the final minutes when the body decided it had done enough. He took one hand off the wheel and typed fast. Amari. He paused. He didn't know if that was her name. The dots appeared, then it disappeared. The GPS recalculated. 6 minutes. Rafael leaned forward, voice cutting through the empty car even though no one could hear him. Stay with me, he said aloud. He typed again. Listen to me, don't sleep. Seconds crawled. Then the phone buzzed. How do you know my name? Rafael's breath caught. She hadn't corrected him. Because I'm listening, he typed. You're not alone. The road curved sharply, tires screamed in protest. He didn't ease up. Tell me something, he sent. Anything. The reply came slow, uneven. My mom's name is Imani. Another pause. She makes my hair neat every morning. Rafael swallowed. 6 minutes ago, this had been a stranger's mistake. Now it was a child telling him about mornings that might never come again. The GPS chimed. 5 minutes. The phone vibrated once more. Jord. Fadding. He stopped moving. Rafael didn't know if that meant safety or something far worse. And he pressed the accelerator anyway. The words stayed on the screen. He stopped moving. Rafael didn't let himself guess what that meant. Guessing was a weakness. Assumptions got people killed. He kept driving, eyes locked forward, jaw clenched so tight it ached. The GPS spoke again. 4 minutes. 4 minutes. The number pulled something loose inside him. Not a memory at first, just a sensation. The same pressure behind the eyes. The same ringing silence that came after screams stopped and you were left standing there, useless. Years ago, another hallway, another door that wouldn't open fast enough. Another promise. He hadn't thought about it in a long time. He'd buried it under violence, under control, under the name El Silencio, but fear had a way of digging things up. He remembered kneeling, remembered blood on tile that wasn't his, remembered saying, I should have been here, to a room that didn't care. And the promise, quiet, desperate, made too late to matter. I won't let this happen again. Rafael's phone buzzed, snapping him back. He's talking again. His grip tightened. What is he saying? Rafael typed. The reply came slower now, like every word cost something. He's mad. Another pause. He says my mom made him do it. Rafael felt something cold harden in his chest. That line, he'd heard it 100 times from men who thought excuses were armor. The GPS chimed. 3 minutes. Rafael cut across lanes without signaling, horn blaring behind him. He didn't look back. Amari, he typed, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. The dots appeared, flickered. Then, I can't feel my legs. Rafael's breath hitched. 3 minutes had never felt so long. And whatever waited at the end of them was about to test whether that buried promise meant anything at all. The phone was warm in Rafael's hand. Too warm. He kept one eye on the road, the other on the glow of the screen, willing it to light up again. He didn't slow, couldn't. The city opened ahead of him in long, empty stretches that felt like they were testing his resolve. Look at me, he typed. Tell me where you are. Seconds passed. Then, the house with the green steps. Not an address. A child's landmark. On the corner, Rafael sent. Dots appeared, hesitated. Yes. The GPS chimed. 2 minutes. Rafael exhaled through his teeth. How old are you? He typed. The answer came slower, but it came. Eight. Eight. The number landed like a weight. 8 meant scraped knees and bedtime routines. 8 meant trusting adults even when they failed you. What do you like? Rafael typed. Quick. The dots blinked. Drawing. Another pause. And purple. Rafael pictured it without wanting to. Crayons ground down to nubs. A favorite color chosen for no reason at all. Good, he typed. Keep talking. The GPS recalculated as he took a sharper turn than necessary. 1 minute. The phone vibrated again, faint. He's not in the room. Rafael's pulse spiked. Stay where you are, he typed. Do not move. The dots appeared, disappeared. Then the last message came through, short, unsteady. I hear sirens. Rafael's eyes scanned the street ahead. He saw the green steps, and he didn't know if those sirens were coming for help or coming too late. Rafael killed the headlights a half block away. The house sat low and tired on the corner, paint peeling, porch light broken, green steps, worn down in the center like too many people had climbed them carrying too much weight. The GPS went silent. So did the phone. Rafael stepped out of the car and the night closed around him. No shouting, no music, no neighbors watching from windows, just the hum of distant traffic and the faint metallic smell that didn't belong outside. Blood always announced itself. He moved toward the house without rushing. Rushing made noise. Noise warned people who didn't deserve warning. The front door was ajar. That was wrong. Inside, the air was thick, stale alcohol, sweat, something sharper underneath. The living room was wrecked, a table on its side, a picture frame shattered near the wall, dark stains soaked into the rug like the floor had tried and failed to drink them away. Rafael crouched near the body on the ground. Imani read. Her breathing was shallow, uneven, but there. A pulse fluttered weakly beneath his fingers, alive for now. The phone vibrated in his pocket. He's coming back. Rafael rose slowly. A floorboard creaked somewhere deeper in the house. Heavy footsteps, unsteady, angry. Rafael turned toward the hallway just as a shadow stretched across the doorway, tall, swaying, unaware that something far worse than him had already arrived. And somewhere above them, a child held her breath, waiting to learn whether the man who answered her message was real. Rafael didn't move when the shadow shifted. He let it grow longer, let it stretch across the wall like a warning the man didn't know how to read. Silence was his weapon, always had been. The footsteps stopped. A voice followed, thick, irritated, soaked in drink. Imani. The name was said like ownership, not concern. Rafael stepped fully into view. The man at the end of the hallway froze, mid-30s, broad shoulders, knuckles scraped raw. His shirt was stained dark at the cuffs. He stared at Rafael the way men did when something went wrong, but they hadn't yet accepted how wrong. Who the hell are you? The man snapped. This ain't your house. Rafael said nothing. He glanced once briefly toward the stairs, measured the distance, calculated angles. Somewhere above them, Amari Solis Reed was listening to every sound, every breath, deciding whether she was about to die. The man scoffed, misunderstanding the silence. Mind your business, he muttered. Family stuff, she gets dramatic. Family. Rafael's eyes flicked to Imani's motionless body on the floor, to the blood ground into the carpet. She fell, the man added quickly. You know how it is, slipped. I tried to help her. Rafael took one step forward. The man's posture changed, not fear, yet, just irritation curdling into something defensive. Look, whatever you think you saw. A soft sound came from upstairs. Not a word. A breath. Rafael felt it in his bones. The man heard it too. His head snapped toward the stairs. And in that moment, Rafael understood exactly what would happen next if he didn't move first. Rafael moved before the man did. Not fast, not loud, just enough. He shifted between the hallway and the stairs, blocking the path without touching him. The man noticed too late, his irritation turning sharp, eyes darting past Rafael like a cornered animal calculating exits. "What's your problem?" the man snapped. "You deaf? I said it's a family business." Rafael finally spoke. "Step away from the stairs." The calm in his voice unsettled the man more than shouting ever could. He laughed once, forced. "Are you some kind of hero?" he scoffed. "She's not even my kid. I put a roof over their heads. You think that's free?" Rafael didn't answer. The man kept talking. They always did. "She runs her mouth. Her mother lets her. Tonight just got loud." He shrugged, as if volume explained blood. "Imani shouldn't have gotten between us." Rafael's gaze dropped briefly to the man's hands. Bruised knuckles, dried red under the nails. "She attacked me," the man said quickly, "scratched my face. What was I supposed to do?" Rafael took another step closer. The man leaned back instinctively. Look, man, you don't understand. I got a temper, yeah, but I never meant." A faint creak sounded overhead. The man's eyes flicked up again. Rafael saw the decision forming in his face, the same one Amari had sensed before hiding. The calculation that if he could just reach the stairs, this problem would disappear. Rafael closed the distance in one controlled movement. His hand came up, not to strike, but to take. And the man's explanation ended in a sharp gasp, as the reality of who he was facing finally caught up to him. The man didn't hit the floor. Rafael didn't allow that. He turned the man's momentum into stillness, getting him sideways and down with a precision that felt almost gentle, until the man realized he couldn't breathe properly. Rafael's forearm pressed just enough, not to crush, not yet, enough to make panic bloom. "Easy," Rafael said quietly. "You don't want to make noise." The man clawed at Rafael's sleeve, boots scraping uselessly against the floor. His face flushed red, then purple, eyes bulging with shock more than pain. This wasn't a fight. The fights were loud. This was removed. Rafael leaned in, voice low. "You're going to listen," he said, "because if she hears you scream, this ends badly for you." The man froze. Fear finally arrived. Rafael adjusted his grip, loosening just enough for air to rush back in. The man gasped, coughing, but Rafael didn't let him rise. He steered him, firmly, silently, away from the hallway, away from the stairs, toward the kitchen. Away from Amari. The kitchen light flickered on, harsh and unforgiving. Rafael pressed the man back against the counter, one hand flat on his chest, the other resting where the man could see it. Still, controlled, final. "You don't move," Rafael said. "You don't speak unless I ask." The man nodded frantically, sweat pouring down his face. In the living room, Imani Reed lay unconscious but breathing. Upstairs, a child waited, heart pounding, listening for sounds that would tell her whether the night was over. Rafael held the man in place, eyes never leaving his face. This wasn't over. It was just contained, for now. Rafael felt it then, the old instinct rising, familiar and efficient. It would be simple, one motion, a problem erased. He had ended worse men for less. Men like this relied on noise and excuses. They folded quickly when the room went quiet. The thought came with a dangerous calm, the kind that used to make his work flawless. The man saw it in Rafael's eyes. "No, listen," he whispered, words tumbling over each other. "I didn't mean it like that. She pushes me. She knows how to." Rafael raised a finger. Silence snapped shut. He looked at the man's face, really looked. Not the bruises, not the sweat. The certainty underneath that he would do it again if given the chance. That apologies were tools, that blame was armor. The old way promised relief, finality, no loose ends. The hard way promised something else. Rafael's jaw tightened. The memory he'd tried to bury surfaced uninvited. A corridor too late, a promise whispered to no one who could hear it anymore. He felt the weight of that promise now, pressing against the decision in front of him. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked. A child shifted her weight. Rafael exhaled slowly and loosened his grip, not enough to free the man, but enough to make the choice clear. "You don't deserve the easy way," Rafael said, voice even, "and I don't get to take it anymore." The man's hope flared, then faltered, unsure what this meant. Rafael stepped back half a pace and reached into his jacket. Not for a weapon. For a phone. The screen lit the kitchen in pale blue as he dialed, eyes never leaving the man's face. "Sit," Rafael said. The man sank onto the floor, shaking. Outside, distant sirens grew louder. And Rafael Montoya Cruz felt the cost of restraint settle into his bones, heavy, permanent, chosen. The man's eyes tracked the phone like it was a blade. "Please," he said, voice breaking now, stripped of bravado. "You don't understand. I'll leave, I swear. You'll never see me again." Rafael said nothing. He finished the call and slid the phone back into his jacket. The sirens outside were closer now, no longer a rumor but a presence. The man heard them too. Hope crept into his face, thin and desperate. Rafael crouched so they were eye level. "You're going to walk out that back door," he said calmly. "You're going to keep your hands where they can be seen, and you're going to tell them exactly what you did." The man shook his head, panic flooding back in. "They'll lock me up." "Yes," Rafael replied, "they will." Rafael stood and stepped aside, opening a clear path to the kitchen door. No threats, no shouting, just inevitability. "But understand this," Rafael continued, voice low. "You don't walk out of here forgiven, you walk out. Every excuse you used tonight dies the moment you open that door." The man stared at the doorway as if it might bite him. Upstairs, a soft sound, fabric shifting, a child listening. Rafael glanced toward the ceiling and raised his voice just enough to carry. "It's okay now," he said. "Stay where you are." He turned back to the man. "Move." The man rose unsteadily and shuffled toward the door. Each step cost him something: control, lies, the belief that he could talk his way out of anything. When he reached the threshold, blue and red lights flashed across the kitchen walls, washing the room in alternating color. Rafael stayed where he was as the door opened. He didn't watch the man leave. He listened. And when the sound of handcuffs clicked into place outside, Rafael closed his eyes, just for a moment, knowing he had chosen the harder path and there would be no turning back. The house felt different once the door closed. Not quiet, just lighter, as if something poisonous had finally been pushed out and the walls were learning how to breathe again. The flashing lights outside painted the living room in slow pulses of blue and red, cutting across the blood-stained carpet, the overturned furniture, the small life that had almost been erased. Rafael knelt beside Imani Reed again. Her breathing was steadier now, shallow but real. He adjusted her position carefully, speaking low, not knowing if she could hear him. "You're safe," he said anyway. Footsteps sounded on the stairs. Light, hesitant. Rafael straightened slowly and turned. Amari Solis Reed stood at the bottom step, small hands gripping the railing, eyes wide and searching. She looked past him first, checking the room, the floor, the shadows, before her gaze settled on his face. Is he gone?" she asked. "Yes," Rafael said, "he's gone." Her shoulders dropped, the tension releasing all at once. She took 2 careful steps forward, then froze, as if unsure whether she was allowed to trust the quiet. Rafael lowered himself to one knee, bringing his eyes level with hers. He didn't reach for her, didn't rush the moment. Amari looked at her mother, then back at him. "Thank you," she said softly. She hesitated, then added, "Rafa, you said that was your name." Rafael felt the name land somewhere deep, somewhere he hadn't let words reach in years. "Yes," he said, "that's my name." She nodded as if confirming something to herself and moved to sit beside her mother, holding Imani's hand with quiet determination. Outside, doors slammed, radios crackled. Inside, Rafael stood still, realizing that for the first time that night, the danger wasn't what came next. It was what the name meant and what it had already changed. Rafael didn't stay when the medics came in. He stepped back into the corner as they moved around Imani Reed with practiced urgency, checking vitals, lifting carefully, speaking in calm voices meant to hold panic at bay. He watched Amari cling to her mother's hand, refusing to let go until one of the paramedics knelt and promised she could ride with her. Only then did Amari look back. Her eyes found Rafael across the room. He nodded once. That was enough. Outside, the night had fully broken open. Red and blue lights washed over the street, over the green steps, over the faces of neighbors who had finally gathered once it was safe to look. Rafael walked past them without being seen, slipping into the dark the same way he always had. But the world had shifted. By morning, things were already moving. Quiet phone calls, names passed without explanation, an apartment arranged in a different part of the city, brighter, higher, watched. A school transfer was handled without questions, a distance created so absolute that the man in handcuffs would never cross it again. Rafael gave no instructions that sounded like kindness. Protection didn't need to announce itself. He stood alone in his car for a long moment before starting the engine, the city waking around him. Somewhere in the distance, a child was learning how to breathe again without counting footsteps. Rafael drove away, knowing this wasn't redemption. It was my responsibility. And once taken, it didn't let go. By sunrise, Rafael was back where the city expected him to be. Meetings happened, phones rang, decisions were made with the same calm precision that had built his reputation. Men watched his face for cracks and found none. El Silencio still lived inside him, measured, unreadable, absolute. But something had shifted beneath the surface. He found himself listening more than he spoke, not for weakness, there was none, but for patterns, for the quiet signals most people ignored. Fear always announced itself before violence did. He had just forgotten how to hear it. A message arrived on a different phone, not words, coordinates, a report, the kind that usually meant cleanup. Rafael stared at the screen longer than necessary. He thought of green steps, of a child counting breaths, of a promise that had waited years to be kept. He forwarded the message without adding a single instruction. Handled the other way. Across the city, a new routine began. A safer door, a locked window that stayed locked, a girl who slept through the night without waking to footsteps, a mother who healed slowly, then fully, surrounded by quiet she could finally trust. Rafael didn't visit, he didn't call. Protection worked best when it didn't cast a shadow. That evening, as the city dimmed and the first lights came on, Rafael stood alone by the window. His reflection stared back, unchanged to anyone who didn't know where to look. The wrong number had reached him, and he had answered, not as a savior, not as a hero, but as a man who now understood that silence could do more than destroy. It could stand guard, and once it did, it never stopped listening. 6 months later, the house with the green steps no longer existed. Imani Reed woke up each morning to quiet, real quiet, the kind that didn't make her flinch. Her body healed slowly, then fully, but the deeper wounds took longer. Some nights she still woke suddenly, heart racing, reaching for her daughter. Amari solace, Reed always answered. They lived somewhere brighter now, higher up, safer. Amari's room had purple curtains and walls covered in drawings, some messy, some careful, all alive. She slept through the night most nights. When she didn't, she knew how to breathe again. Neither of them spoke his name often. They didn't need to. Sometimes when Imani locked the door or watched Amari laugh without fear, she felt it, the sense that something unseen stood between them and the world. Not close, not watching, just there. Elsewhere, Rafael, El Silencio, Montoya Cruz continued exactly as before. Same silence, same power, same reputation. But when his phone vibrated now, he always looked. Because a child sent a message to the wrong number. And the wrong number answered. Before you go, what would you have done if that message had reached your phone? And what did this story teach you about silence, fear, and choosing to act? Tell us in the comments and subscribe for more stories like this.